Hey, well, it is the Monday the 13th, and nothing says like a dedicated day drinker more than someone who's showing up on Monday to do the work. So, welcome everybody. I am Wes Hagen, and welcome to Day Drinking with Wes Hagen. It is Monday the 13th of July in the glorious and horrible year of 2020, and it looks like we're having some folks join in. So, welcome Beverly, welcome Real Psalm. Really happy to have you guys aboard. As you know, we have retooled the show, so it's going to be a little bit different, just like it was last Wednesday. So what we're doing is a 15-minute tasting. Today we're talking about Pinot Noir. So I'm going to talk about Pinot Noir in general as a viticulturist, as a winemaker, as someone who studies wine. Where did Pinot Noir come from? Where's it going? Stylistically, what can we expect? What did Sideways do to it? And then we're going to be tasting the 2018 Pinot Noir J. Wilkes. So probably I really love the 15 and the 18. I think they're both some of the better Pinot Noirs that I've ever made in my life. So I'm really looking forward to sharing my thoughts on the 2018 with all of you fine folks. So Nick, welcome, and Michelle's back in the house. So good to see everybody popping in, and Amy and Beverly and everybody else coming in. Really appreciate you guys being here. Let's get right to it. So what I have here in the bottle is the 2018 J. Wilkes Pinot Noir. I apologize that it's backwards. I should probably figure out how to change that. So, gosh, Pinot Noir. So if you guys watched on Friday, you know I was hanging out with one of my great heroes, Ken Brown. If you missed the show, it should be up on YouTube, I'm guessing tomorrow. It is on the J. Wilkes Wines Facebook page if you scroll down. But it was a great conversation with Ken Brown. Got to hear basically his entire life story. Got to hear where he came from, why he got into wine, what were the things that really turned him on, his time in Oregon, his time at Zaca Mesa, his time at Byron. And I might have mentioned, and you might have heard, that the 1989 Byron Pinot Noir Santa Maria Valley was the wine that changed my life. I would say before I had tasted that 2019 Pinot, 1989 Pinot, I had never actually had a red wine that really flipped my lid. You know, I remember tasting great wine as a kid, young Bordeaux's, young Burgundies, young all these things. And I always found them to be delicious, but for whatever reason, it seems like the first seminal wine that really hit my head full force and just basically blew the top off was Ken Brown's wine, the 1989 Santa Maria Valley. So what can you expect out of Santa Maria Valley and Pinot Noir? Well, I think you can expect a similar flavor profile that you would get from other coastal regions in California. So I would put, you know, basically a little bit of the juiciness of maybe Sonoma Coast, a little bit of the grip of Santa Rita Hills, a little bit of the completeness that you would get in Edna Valley, Arroyo Grande, San Luis Obispo. Not a lot that's similar to Oregon or Burgundy. I find Oregon and Burgundy to produce very earthy, complex, very whole, round wines and good vintages, and and wines that are a little shrill and a little herbal and perhaps a little dirty in bad vintages or vintages where the wine maybe got away with the winemaker. Now, this is really interesting thing about Pinot Noir that I've never said about the show. In 1997 or 1998, I went to my first international Pinot Noir celebration up in Linfield College in McMinnville, Oregon. And it is a very Oregon-focused event. It's probably a little more Oregon-focused than World of Pinot Noir is focused on California. Oregonians love that it's their event. They do invite Californians, and they do invite tons and tons of folks from New Zealand, tons and tons of folks from Burgundy for sure. And it is a little bit of a celebration of the 45th parallel. If you don't know what I'm talking about in the 45th parallel, you're not alone. The 45th parallel generally is the 45th parallel of latitude. And at the 45th parallel, by the way, we're here around 34, 35 here in the Central Coast, and basically Santa Maria Valley, we're sitting right about the 36th parallel. So we are significantly south. In fact, how in the world do we grow great Pinot Noir in Santa Maria Valley, where we're on the exact same latitude as Lebanon and Syria? There are parts of northern Africa that we are basically on the same latitude. And the key for us, of course, is the fog and the wind and the cool temperatures and the Coriolis effect churning up the Pacific Ocean, that cold water. So basically the Pacific Ocean, just think of it as a refrigerator. And the closer we are to the refrigerator, the cooler it's going to be. So the warmer it gets inland, the more we have that fight back and forth between the heat east and really the cold water on the west. So there's a reason why, Mark Twain said the coldest winter I ever spent, or the hottest summer I ever spent the coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco. We do really stay nice and cool. We haven't gone over 79 degrees. I know a lot of people are having heat spikes right now all over the country. We've had beautiful lows down in the mid to low 50s, and our hottest day thus far in July has been 80 degrees. 80 degrees on the spot. Beautiful 73 today. We had to wear a little sweater taking a noon stroll today to start with. Once we were in the sun, it was pretty warm. But we're experiencing really beautiful growing conditions. Warm, but not hot. A little bit further along the season in Santa Maria Valley and Santa Rita Hills than we have been probably since 2017. So I would say 15, 16, 17, very warm and increasingly warm vintages. 18 and 19, back to a sense of normalcy. What I remember in the 90s and early 2000s, which were long, cool growing seasons with a little bit of heat spikes that would punctuate the vintage. Here is what you need to know about Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir, if it's grown in the right place, the earliest you're going to get bud break is usually February. Normal bud break in coastal California areas like Santa Maria Valley will be early March. Bud break sometimes late April, even into May. Sometimes in Burgundy, usually the vines are growing and you have full canopy by June. So basically it warms up very quickly in Burgundy from being very cold, and the growth tends to be pretty quick, and the grapes then slow down a little bit through veraison, and they basically have a nice warm summer and hopefully a dry fall to bring the fruit in without too much rain, hail, or other interesting problems. Now, we don't have those problems with Pinot Noir here on the central coast of California. I can honestly say that I've been here 25, this will be my 26th year, I think, here on the central coast, and in Santa Maria, Santa Barbara, sort of down in the area of Lompoc, all this area, between April and September, I have never seen measurable rainfall in 25 years. Quarter inch, half an inch, I think maybe once. We always have that little moment in harvest, usually around mid-September. You always know the young winemakers because we get basically the weather patterns come in, and we see that we're going to get a little bit of rain. Everyone freaks out and starts picking before the rain, not knowing that we're not going to get any significant rain. We're going to get enough rain, knock down the dust, maybe clean the grapes off a little bit, but that's about it. We get so much fog. The vineyards tend to be so wet in the morning anyways that a little bit of rain isn't that much different than just the coastal fog that comes in. So should we worry about rot? Should we worry about mildew? Well, fortunately, mildew is not an issue after the grapes turn color. At about 19 bricks, about 19% sugar, just before you would pick them for sparkling wine, the sugar in the grapes actually staves off all mildew pressure. So mildew cannot grow on grapes that have at least 19% sugar. So mildew doesn't become an issue. What becomes an issue is sour rot, black rot, botrytis, anything, or insect damage, anything that would compromise the quality and the integrity of the skins of the grapes. And of course, Pinot Noir tends to have very thin skins. Fortunately, though, in the world of Pinot Noir, the thickest skins probably in the world probably exist in Santa Maria Valley and Santa Rita Hills because of the wind, because of the fog, because of how small the clusters are, tiny clusters, tiny grapes. And then we have lots of calcium and exchangeable calcium in our soil, which allows basically the vines to absorb that calcium and to, as building blocks for the skin. So when you have a tiny little berry and the skin increases, you basically get an exponential reduction of skin in as it's measured in a ratio with juice. So more skin, less juice means darker, richer wine. More juice, less skin means we're going to be moving more towards sort of those kind of old school Pinot Noirs before we had the new clones, before we had the new technology, before we had the new trellising, before we knew what we were really doing in the 70s and 80s. A lot of Pinot Noirs in California look like rosé. Some randomly do still, but I think you notice that I think that style is kind of out of vogue, and now people want a little bit bigger, richer, riper Pinot Noir. Speaking of which, even though this is not a big, rich, ripe Pinot Noir, it doesn't have any manipulation to make it darker, richer. This is 100% Pinot Noir, predominantly from the Bien Nacido vineyard. I've seen, I won't say I've seen Syrah lighter than this, but it is about max color for an undoctored Pinot Noir. Just a beautiful, beautiful dark ruby color. As we always say, can you see through it, right? No, you can read through it. I'm looking at some text through the wine. and I can read it. I look at the meniscus. I know it's the edge of the wine. I know it's a young wine because the meniscus is clear. It looks almost silvery or almost platinum. If I saw a little bit of browning or brickishness, I knew maybe by visual only that this wine might be a little bit older. But as it looks in the glass, I would call it a dark garnet, getting close to a light ruby. Barely translucent, although it has a really nice hue, a nice dark saturated hue. What does that mean? I'm going to expect that I'm going to smell something other than cherry. If it was lighter than this, if it was a light or medium garnet, I would expect there to be a very big cherry aroma. The darker the wine, the harder it is to see through it. I'm expecting more blackberry, blueberry, strawberry, and some of those bigger fruit characters. I think all Pinot Noir really shows a lot of character of cherry. I think cherry exists in almost every Pinot Noir that you can imagine. Cool. So let's go ahead and get our nose in this beautiful 2018 Pinot Noir. Whatever you're drinking, cheers. Happy day drinking. I've earned it. Had a good day. Smells wonderful. Big strawberry aroma. A lot of raspberry. Baking spice. A little bit of warmth. Reminds me not necessarily of the smell of alcohol. And this wine's been open 3 or 4 days under a repour. These wonderful stoppers. That do such a wonderful job of absorbing all the oxygen in an open bottle. So this bottle's been open over the weekend. I think we opened it Wednesday, actually. Still smells just sound as a pound. Really bright, really primary, really juicy. So the 2018, because of the long hang time, because of the cool season, because of the lack of extremes, we really never had those extremes. We had a couple days in the 90s in September and October, but gosh, it just really didn't impact the vintage like heat spikes have in the past. We weren't hustling. It was a long, cool vintage where we could kind of decide, do we want to pick it today or do we want to pick it tomorrow? There was really no panic. I think, panic can certainly change a wine. It's pretty easy when you know that there's a weather pattern coming, either a heat spike or rain. And one thing I'll tell you, a secret about Santa Barbara weather, if you're ever up here and considering vintage or you're buying some grapes from Santa Barbara, one thing you always want to consider is usually when it rains when it rains a little bit in summer or fall, generally in fall, it means here comes the heat. So if we have just a sprinkling of rain some night and we get less than 1/4 of an inch, I know that it might say that it's going to be 80 degrees in 3 days. I know it's going to probably be 90. We do seem to get a high pressure situation after rain comes through the Central Coast in that certain period of time. And because of the temperature of the water warms significantly between mid-August and mid-September, when the water from Alaska, the warm water from Alaska, believe it or not, starts coming down and changing the temperature of the water along the Pacific coast, we have a difference. And that the cold water and the Coriolis effect, it actually slightly reverses, and we actually have a much higher capacity for high pressure, which means heat. Fortunately, this wine has nothing to do with high pressure and heat. This wine has to do with everything with a spot-on perfect vintage in Santa Maria Valley. The wine just got, I think, 91 points and a Best Buy from the Wine Enthusiast. So we really appreciate that. And if you're interested, this is in current release. And I do believe you can use go to jwilkes.com or millerfamilywines.com, and you can always try the all caps penny shipping to see if you can't get a penny 1 cent shipping for 6 bottles to a case. So that's your 12 seconds of strictly commercial. Buy wine. It's important, and you need some at home. You run out of wine, you'd be screwed anyways, right? Juicy, bright, fruity, good acidity, soft tannin. What tannins are there? Obviously, this has some good color, so I know that there's some tannins there, but it's not coming across as being astringent or really grippy like some young Pinots are. I remember opening this wine last week, and I do remember saying that it had some grip and some chewiness. I'm finding that after 5 days open, the tannins have softened significantly. The fruit is just out of control, bright. This has been under very, very small amount of oxygen because of the special closure that I used to save this wine for 5 days. But this is a wine that is so sound right now. I think it's actually probably drinking better than it did 5 days ago as a result of opening up. It's just a baby. One thing I like to think about, and this will be a controversy, but what else do we have to talk about? Controversially, I do believe a wine that stays open on my on my counter for a couple days and still shows beautiful and even improves is a really good indication that wine may age pretty well. If a wine is going to fall apart pretty quickly, it's been micro-oxed or extended period of time or just made for immediate consumption. I find if I leave it out on the counter, I taste it 2 or 3 days later, and it's just soft and dumb and starting to just fade. It's a little, just a little oxidized. I kind of think, well, that's not really a candidate for long-term aging. I think a wine that can age 10 years should be able to be 48 to 72 hours open on the counter. And if it can go 5 days, even under a gas situation or a repour stopper, I think that's a pretty good indication. I'd like to think this wine can go 10 to 15 years for those 3 people that'll buy it and lay it down. But I'll tell you what, for $30 retail, you guys are going to pay about $22 if you buy a 6-pack or a 12-pack, $24 for a 6-pack, $22 for a 12-pack. For $22 91-point wine, this wine is so delicious now and certainly can lay down for the future. So definitely, if you're looking to get some wine right now for under $25 and lay it down for 10 years and have a wine that drinks like a $50 or $75 beautiful, beautiful wine. You know, not a lot of wines at this price point are predominantly coming out of the Bienvenido vineyard, and it's thrilling to me to be able to say that. So that is the 2018 Pinot Noir, J. Wilkes. What else should we say about Pinot Noir? It's definitely one of the oldest grapes. It's been described in literature for 800 years or more, almost 900 years. In 1395, Duke Philip the Bold, Valois Duke, made the Edict of Burgundy, the Edict of 1395, which basically said that if anyone grows any red grape in Burgundy that's not Pinot Noir, they would be executed. That rule is still in effect in the sense that there's still no one's going to be getting their heads cut off, but Pinot Noir is the only red grape that's allowed in Burgundy. 2 white grapes are allowed in AOC Burgundy, and that, of course, would be Chardonnay, and the third grape, Aligoté, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, between Marsanne and Meursault. So that's kind of what the legality of Burgundy is. Of course, Burgundy, the first Pinot, one of the first times the word Pinot shows up, it's actually spelled Pineaux, and I know my friends from LSU fully agree with that spelling of Pinot. So go Pinot. So Pinot, the idea of Pinot, Pineaux, looking back at the etymology of the word, chances are it describes the shape of the cluster of Pinot Noir, pine cone shaped, Pinot, pine cone shaped. And almost all the Pinot Noir family, Pinot Gris, Pinot Blanc, Pinot Meunier, they all really have that kind of tight, closed cluster architecture, which would be perfectly described as that. Yes, so stoked you guys are all here day drinking with me. So what I'm going to do, it is 15 minutes, so I think we've had a lovely time talking a little bit about Pinot Noir. I will stay on a little bit later if you guys have any questions about Pinot, but what I'm going to do is do a really quick reset. Whatever channel you're on, the new one will pop up. I do this so we can compact these on our YouTube channel, so we can have a 15-minute session on Pinot Noir, 15-minute session on what we're doing next, which I'm really excited. We're doing how to visit a tasting room like a pro. So I've been working in tasting rooms and going to tasting rooms since I was a kid. I'm going to give you guys all my secrets on how to get the best experience out of a tasting room before COVID, in the middle of COVID, and after COVID. So I will be right back, and same bat time, same bat channel. Give me 2 minutes and I will get us going immediately. So thanks again. I hope you guys learned about Pinot Noir, and I'll be right back.